The Paul Leslie Interviews.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome the legendary Taco. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Paul. Great to be on your show.
The pleasure is all ours, I assure you. Who is Taco?
Wow. Well, where should I start? 57 years ago, I was born in Jakarta, Indonesia. We were colony people. My parents were both born there in Indonesia, and my grandparents went there from the Netherlands. And ever since then, it's been on the road, moving from one country to the other, and at some point we landed here in Germany.
So, Taco, tell us a little bit about your parents.
Well, Dad used to work for, in the latter part of his life, he worked for an American shirt company, Arrow Shirts, and that took us pretty much around the world. So as of my 8th year, we moved to Singapore, then the United States for a short time, and to Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany. Yeah, it was a very exciting life because he put us, my brother and I, in the International Schools of America, which is an international school system, which you'll find all over the world, which makes it very easy for English-speaking people not to lose a year of school. And I graduated in Belgium, 73, and yeah, it opened my horizon, and I got in touch with the American culture as a Dutchman. That was really, really a great impact on my life.
Tell us about the music that you heard growing up.
Well, I come from a very musical family. My grandfather, from my mother's side, he had an orchestra in Indonesia. He was a pianist, professional pianist. And my other grandfather was a violinist. In school, or growing up, I went to a music school when I was 7, where we played little plays and we sang in choir, and at home we heard jazz, all the jazz greats, and popular music, of course, classical music. And as of the time I went to the American schools, I got accustomed to the American Songbook. And of course I did all the musicals, sang in school choir, and yeah, that was a great influence in my life.
When did you start to think, I'm not just a music lover, but I was meant to bring music to others?
Well, I never really had to think about it because everything went from one step to the other. At school, in my free time, I was always singing in choir, or I worked with bands. And when I came to Hamburg, Germany, I went to acting school, and in our free time, I'd be hanging out in clubs, and I'd jam with the musicians there. And then I went to do theater, and we did musicals, and of course I met other musicians, and in our free time we would do music, and at some point we had our first tour, and record companies got interested. So it was never a thing of sitting down and thinking about, oh, what am I going to do professionally? One thing just led to the other.
Our special guest is recording artist Taco. Tell me how you got interested in the music from the American Songbook.
Well, that has a lot to do with my youth, going to the American schools. Yeah, singing these songs, or the first time you sing a musical, you get involved in this kind of thing. Or I would love seeing old musical movies. You pick up these songs, you grow up with it, like most Americans do.
When you think about all of the songs that you've recorded, is there one that means the most to you?
Oh, wow. There's so many that have a story to tell. But I guess one that really stands out is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's a song I really love to sing up till today. What
is it about Over the Rainbow that you identify with?
Well, I guess it's, I'm a Cancer. I'm an escapist. I like to live in my dream world. Yeah, it's like a fairy tale for grown-ups. And it's just a beautiful story, a beautiful song, and it fits my personality.
We're talking with recording artist Taco. What inspired your decision to record Puttin' on the Ritz?
That's a funny story. I had recorded German songs. My first record contract was singing in German, and that didn't really work out. It was a long-term contract. I had done the Eurovision Song Festival, and it would have meant to have to sing German all of my life. And I did everything to try to get out of that contract, which I eventually did. And then it was a matter of finding a complete new image so people wouldn't identify me with the German songs anymore. And I really dug down deep and thought, oh God, what can I do? And that's where I came up with the idea to take these classic American songs and to put them in a whole new arrangement. And at that time, new wave music was just starting or just coming up. So that worked out really well. It was a big experiment to take this electronic arrangement and to do it with the old songs. And it took quite a while to get a record company interested, but eventually it did work out.
What record label was that?
Actually, RCA got onto that.
I'm very curious. Did you ever hear from Irving Berlin, the songwriter who wrote Puttin' on the Ritz? What did he think of it?
Well, I had the honor of talking to Mr. Berlin when I was in New York, and that was really a hoot, because he was 100 years old at that time, and of course he didn't leave his apartment anymore, but he was very excited about it, and he really took his time and said, wow, that's the greatest version I ever heard of that song. And he was so excited to see this work of his in the charts for the very, very first time.
So you spoke to Irving Berlin on the phone?
Yeah. Believe me, that was one of the highlights of my life.
What did you find Irving Berlin's personality, his mannerisms to be like?
Very awake for a 100-year-old man, and that was very, very impressive. Because, he could have been an old tattered man, but no, he was very interested. He asked about the production and how it was made, and that was really exciting for me. A wonderful experience.
We're talking to recording artist, musician, Taco. Tell us about the follow-up single, Singing in the Rain.
Well, if people knew, we didn't really do it in a professional studio at that time. My producer had a studio in his cellar, and the rain effect, we'd have the shower going. It was all a kind of a homey production. So that was really a lot of fun.
You've performed in a lot of places all around the world. Has there been a favorite place to perform?
Well, everything has its charm. Of course, there have been a lot of dumpy places, of course. Like, one of the awkward things about show business is, I'd be on a tour, and I'd come from the United States, and, there'd be a couple of hundred people in the room with a beautiful wardrobe and the whole shebang. And then you'd fly back to Europe, and in Denmark, they'd park me in some discotheque, and they'd make me change, right beside where they staple the bottles and in the crates of drinks. And you'd go, okay, that grounds you.
Tell us about the song you released, Timeless Love.
That is so weird. I've recorded a lot of songs in my life, and not all of them came on record or that. And Timeless Love, I must have done at some point in Berlin in a studio to do a friend of mine a favor. And I didn't have this record or this song in my head anymore. I'd completely forgotten about it. And so like 20 years later, we got a phone call, said, well, we would like to release this. And it blew my mind because I didn't even know it anymore. So I listened to it for the first time too.
What are you the most proud of?
That everything's been so wonderful. I've gotten to meet so many wonderful people, and life has been very, very good to me. And it could have been worse. It's one thing led to the other, and it's been a fantastic ride up till now.
What have you been working on lately?
Well, I've done all kinds of things. With a friend, I've written scripts, I write songs, or I've done commercial jingles and musicals in the past years. So whatever comes up, I'm always open for something new. And if someone says, "Hey, can you come over and help me out on choir or whatever," I'll jump in and help along. I wrote a musical in the past years, and so all kinds of exciting things happen.
If you could put it into words, what is it you like about music?
Music is life. It's breathing. There's always a tune in my head. My friends will always say, "Hey, shut up," because you're always singing. So music follows me wherever I go.
What is the best thing about being Taco?
Oh, God. What's the best thing? Wow. If I have to put it philosophically, it's a very exciting incarnation. I get to see life from a lot of perspectives.
My last question for you, Taco, is very open-ended. What would you say to anyone listening in?
Well, what would I like to say? I'm very, very happy that people listen to music because it connects people, and it's something very universal, and love is universal, music is universal, and it's great to be part of this big planetarian family. And I send out all my love to you.
It has been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, Paul, for calling me up.
I hope to see you in Atlanta, Georgia someday.
Hey, I'd love to. Actually, I've been there. I've actually performed.
Where did you perform?
Oh, my old sif in my head. I'm sorry, I don't remember it, but I do remember I performed there, and I had a huge party that was given for me in a wonderful club. But we're talking 80s now, and I'm glad I remember Atlanta, Georgia, but I don't remember the name of the place. I'm sorry.
Well, I hope you make it back someday.
I'd love to.
Thank you. I hope we can speak again sometime.
Okay, Paul. My pleasure.